Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forgotten Generation podcast, hosted by Troy Jujabanga. This podcast is about amplifying young people's voices and the journeys they're on. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the social media ban. And for those listeners who don't know about the social media ban, on the 15th of June 2026, the Keir Starmer's government, a social media ban for children under 16 was announced. And there was a consultation that happened on social media. And today's guest, Rachel, is a digital rebel fit for FitGem and also a youth advocate, and she's going to explain more about that consultation with the hack.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So, I've actually been working in the online safety space for about 8 years now, which is terrifying when you think about it. But most recently, I've been working with FlipGen, and I was also working with I Will as a youth collaborator on their campaign working on the consultation. It was commissioned by the government so that we could go around the UK and deliver these hack workshops to speak to young people in person and kind of get a sense for what they thought about the social media ban and what they think about other online safety issues. We spoke a lot about AI. All the events were really, really exciting.
Thanks so much. So good to have you on today's episode, a very special one about the social media ban. And so the first question is, what was your experience of social media and what has been the pros and cons for you?
When I was younger, I got my first social media account in primary school, which obviously you're not supposed to do, but everybody does. I found it a great way to keep in touch with friends and kind of keep myself in the loop with what was going on. I was actually bullied horribly all throughout primary school, and social media to me just seemed like a way that prevented me from being excluded because I could be in the group chats and everything, and I kind of knew just a bit more about what was going on. Unfortunately, later on that did lead to some instances of cyberbullying. It obviously then translated into the fact that I was often left out of group chat. Sometimes group chats were created about me, I'm sure. So it was kind of this double-edged sword for me growing up. Yes, I was in the loop. Yes, I could keep in touch with my friends. But at the same time, it was this tool that could be used to make my bullying so much worse. In secondary school, I made the decision to come off social media completely. So in a way, from a personal level, I kind of really do understand what this ban is going to do for a lot of under 16s, because while everybody is making the argument that it's going to improve young people's mental health and they'll spend more time outside, I actually did come off social media. And what I found was, yes, it absolutely did improve my mental health because I wasn't doom scrolling, I wasn't feeding into all the negativity that was on there. I also felt incredibly isolated. I live in a very rural area and it's hard to get between towns here. The buses only run like once an hour, and I live in a village just outside where I went to secondary school. So when I came off social media, it was so much harder for me to keep in touch and keep in the loop with my friends. I think I was off social media for a good 2 years, and I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. I really did miss being in the loop because not only could I not keep in touch with friends in the same platforms that they were talking on, I was also missing all like the trends and the inside jokes of what everybody was talking about because I just wasn't there. So I think that in some ways it does give me a unique perspective on the ban because I understand that for a lot of under 16s, the fact is that whatever social isolation they feel they already face is going to get 10 times worse.
Thanks for sharing about that. And I'm so sorry about your experience that you had. It's never easy with that. I took a break from social media from like a very horrible experience. I took like a year off from it, but I came back on it again. And I think it helped me with mental health as well. And I think it can help with some like benefits for you. It can help with maybe like reading more, going out more, socializing instead of being on your phone all the time on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there definitely are a lot of benefits. When I notice myself being on my phone too much again, the first thing I do is I always like take a break from Instagram, make sure I'm not scrolling on Reels all the time because it absolutely is addictive. I just think that like forcing people to come off of social media instead of it being their own choice is where this can go horribly wrong because there are a lot of things on social media that young people probably use to benefit their mental health. I mean, we were speaking about this earlier. During COVID, so many young people learned to rely on the online world for socializing and to build up communities and support systems that they otherwise don't have access to. I think being absolutely just taken away from them like that Like, that is going to hit really hard for a lot of young people. And I worry that we don't have enough provisions in place in our communities in real life to support that demand that young people have for socialising. I mean, if you look around many rural areas, such as Angus, where I live, there's no youth clubs anymore. There's no places where young people can kind of hang out in public without being deemed troublemakers. And any extracurriculars outside of school time are really expensive.
And exactly, and that is true because it's not much like youth club out there anymore. There's just not much like socialised places anymore, and it's really sad because I think there is some positives in it with social media as well. With the community aspect, like finding your voice on there as well. But there's also that negative is like spending so much time on the phone all the time in your room, maybe on social media, flicking through photos and videos and on TikTok for hours and hours and hours.
It is something that people definitely have to find a balance of. But I mean, personally, I think that comes from better education about how addictive social media can be and providing young people with alternative pastimes to social media. I mean, a lot of young people spend so much time on their phones because they don't have any other option. And it's all right saying, okay, well, we're going to force you to not spend so much time on your phone. But where are we expecting young people to go? Because there isn't really any options anymore.
Absolutely, it's not. And yeah, I think there needs to be a lot to do to find that balance in social media. And that brings me to like, what are your thoughts on this ban? Was the Keir Starmer right to do this ban for young people? Or do you think he should have just let them off, but make sure that it could have been more better for young people?
Absolutely do not think that this ban was the right decision. I think that in a lot of ways it is going to be incredibly harmful for young people. The other side of it is that I think they made a real mistake in opening that consultation in the first place. I had the unique opportunity to be part of the team that helped gather research directly from young people and hear their thoughts. And I think it's always playing a very dangerous game to ask young people for their thoughts when you have no intention of actually listening to them. I mean, it seemed very clear to me right from the start when discussions around the ban sort of opened up in February that the government had already made their decision in the way that they were planning to go. They had decided that a ban was the best way forward. Whether it was the best way forward in a policy sense of something that will actually work, or the best way forward because it was the thing that made them look best politically, not quite sure. But it was very clear it was their choice. And I think that it's incredibly disheartening to say to young people, oh, like, come and give us your views, they'll make a difference. And then do a complete 180 and say, actually, no, we've made our decision, we're the adults, we're going to decide for you. We already have such an issue with youth engagement in politics. I mean, if you're looking at voter turnout, the lowest voter turnout age group is always 18 to 24. And I just worry that by doing things like this, the government is driving young people further and further away from politics.
Absolutely. Driving away from even voting for maybe the next Prime Minister and doing all the election stuff, having a say on all the issues that young people face. Like, you're going to lose young people to vote and stuff if you're not listening to what young people want and not listening to what they are saying, because it is our lives at the end of the day. I think the adults need to realise that, like, I tell a young person living through this and you will not understand. Thank you so much, Rachel. And I hope listeners have took away on what you said today. Anyone listening to this episode, there is lots of help and guidance from trusted adults and also organisations who are doing incredible work in really talking about the social media ban and including FlipGen. If you want to know more about that, we will link FlipGen in the description of this episode. And you're not alone in this, as we're all in this together. Thanks for listening to the podcast episode. This is a Be the Change Media Network production. Please support the podcast by subscribing and rating the podcast. I'd love to hear what you like and what could be better for future episodes. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and iwill.troy, and also on X, iwill_Troy. Tune in to next week's episode.